This week, tune into the Paul Finebaum Show as I discuss
the delicious taste of ice cold Dr. Pepper.
Larry Culpepper? Hey, I'm in the middle of a promo.
Sorry, Finey. The fans are craving so much Dr. Pepper, I thought I'd borrow some of your airtime.
Security!
Hey, look, whether you're watching college football or calling into some guy's radio show, Dr. Pepper makes college football that much sweeter. So head to your local Dollar General and grab some today.
Can I have one of yours?
Hey, we got a caller. You're on the Larry Culpepper Show with your host, Larry Culpepper.
That's it.
That's Dr. Pepper, the one fans crave.
And we welcome you to, what day is it? Thursday?
It's Thursday.
Yeah,
I don't know what day it is, though.
You've been all over.
I never do.
Man, welcome back.
It's good to be back with you. I will admit, Monday was weird not being here because I obviously I missed you, but I just missed everybody. I mean, it was weird. I felt very empty on Monday, so I'm glad we could do this today.
You had to head off to a mandatory company meeting.
I did. Somehow, it's weird. You got out of it. I'm confused by that.
It was yesterday, and they felt like
well, you're just too important.
Someone
here.
needed to be here.
Yeah, no, I mean, you were here, and we appreciate you for your service on this show.
Thank you. I was apparently the only person out there, though.
By the way, yeah, you really were. You have decorated this studio very well, Paul. I'm impressed by your holiday spirit and the way that you have put out so many poinsettias. I mean, it feels very...
Have you
very festive?
Have you put up your Christmas? Because you haven't been home probably in about a month.
I have a fake tree up, which I will say there are people out there that would judge me for having a fake tree. I can't.
Why be concerned about that?
Well, I don't care exactly, which is why I just own up to my fake tree, and I like it. I think it's good, and that's about all I have going. I have a fake tree, a couple wreaths.
We have a wreath. Is it a wreath? Wreath?
Did you put an F on the end of that?
I don't know what I put on it.
Okay, good.
We have a wreath on the door.
Oh, nice.
A wreath, not a reefer.
I hope not. That'd be interesting. We're off to a good start.
We have a wreath.
Yeah.
On the door. Although what are the round things called?
The balls?
The balls. One of the balls fell. I jammed it back in so my wife wouldn't blame it on me for slamming the door too hard.
It was definitely
Anyway,
you.
we have a really big show on tap. George Schroeder. But he has a reef on his door, too. Billy Liucci. Scott Hamilton. Damian Harris will be by later. We love Damian. And your phone calls at 855-242-7285. So, you've been up in the great Northeast?
Yeah, it was a little chilly up there.
I bet it wasn't that warm.
I am a Southern girl, born and raised, and so I try to tough it out in the cold, but I'm just not quite built for it. I try, and it just... There was a moment yesterday in Bristol, Connecticut. It said that the wind chill made it feel about 6 degrees. I think it felt about -6.
Yeah,
and
that's a cold place.
We were trying to talk, and you know what happens when it gets really cold? I know you've experienced this before. Maybe TMI, but you start to have boogers coming out that you can't even feel. And people were having that, and you don't know if you should tell them.
That's why I wear a mask when I'm in the cold weather.
Yeah, no, you do. Yeah, you have to. And your lips are so numb that you can't talk, and you just sound a mess. But it was good. I'm glad to be back, though, in the South, where I would say where I belong.
We're glad to have you back.
Yeah.
And it was just fairly mundane without you on Monday.
Well, I've heard that Jim was wanting to call in and talk to me, so I'm wondering if he's going to call in today. I'd love to talk to him if he wants to call in and speak about anything.
I'm glad you want to talk to him.
No, I do. Yeah, I hope we hear from him. I hope we hear from everybody. I can't wait to hear from as many people as want to talk to us today.
Are you wearing something different today?
I'm wearing a necklace that Millie sent me. Paul, the last necklace that Millie sent me, you stole and gave to your wife, which is fine. I understand that.
I mean, she didn't know. Well, actually,
you regifted it.
I haven't given it to her yet. It's under the tree.
I hope she's not. I hope Linda's not listening. But anyway, so Millie, thank you very much for this.
Linda doesn't even know we're on right now.
Well, neither does Josh, but I really love this necklace, and I appreciate Millie for sending that. It's such a kind gesture, and it happened to match what I was wearing today. I would have worn it anyway. When I opened this letter from her, it was great to put on. So we love the Finebaum family.
We will grab some phone calls here, and we start with this guy's. To me, if you ever were starting a program, a radio show, this would be my host. Listen to this guy's voice. Hugh in Deep Gap, North Carolina.
Paul, you are entirely too kind, my friend. I appreciate that. Can you hear me all right? I'm working a new phone system here, and I'm not sure it's all that great.
You sound great, Hugh.
A couple of things. I've been watching or listening and watching your show when I have free afternoons. And the whole discussion about all of these young defensive coordinators that are made head coaches, I've sort of got an observation. I think they have a difficult time resting the proper assistant coaches to forge good offensive schemes and the ability to keep them accountable and retainable. And it seems to be much more difficult for defensive coaches than offense coaches. I think, and I am a Kentucky fan, graduate, love that school, but I think Tennessee has made a really good decision in bringing back the football godfather of the Tennessee program in the old coach, because he has sufficient standing with a lot of young coaches to maybe help Coach Pruitt come up with good people and put them on the right track to keep them accountable. I know in Kentucky's case, they've had 3 sets of offensive coordinators in 5 years, and it's kind of a miracle in some ways that their offensive line and Benny Snell has managed to lead the Southeastern Conference in yardage gain between the tackles. And if they had a passing game to go with it and some defense, they might be good. But anyhow, that was my thought for the day. I would really like for you to check with Booger and Big Swagoo about a question that I have about defense at the college level. Kentucky's been trying to run a 3-man front, and the truth of the matter is, whether it's the Locke kid from Missouri or the new kid playing down at Ole Miss, if you've got a quarterback that can high point the ball and deliver it, you give them 6 or 8 seconds back there, they're going to kill you. I don't care how good your defensive backs are. And I'm really disappointed that Coach Stoops, as a defensive specialist, hasn't been able to resolve those difficulties.
That's a great point. Hey, Hugh, thank you very, very much for the call. Brings up some interesting points.
Right. And, I mean, the differences between 3-4 and 4-3 is so much of it is personnel-based, and I understand what he's talking about. But the problem is these types of defensive linemen that can really make a difference in a 4-man front just do not grow on trees. You're not going to find that many of them. You know, Alabama finds a lot of them, obviously, and you see a team like Georgia having them. I think it's something that's difficult to do. I was actually recently talking to Coach Stoops about just some of the recruiting challenges that they have there in Kentucky. He wasn't making excuses, but they're not able to pull from the same talent bed. So you kind of have to make your scheme around what you can do best with the personnel you have on your team. So I think that's where a lot of it comes into play with trying to decide whether you're going to go 3-4 or 4-3. But he's right. Hugh is that you become susceptible to guys who can throw the football and to receivers that can create separation if you're relying on your defensive backs to do so much. But, I would still say that what Kentucky has done with the challenges they face from a recruiting standpoint, they should have beat Florida this year, but they have still done admirably well, in my opinion, with what they're up against.
More phone calls here. Sheriff is up next. Hello, Sheriff.
Hey, man.
How are you?
Oh, Florida, how y'all doing?
Great. How are you?
Oh, man. If I got any better, I'd need a twin brother. Look, Laura,
you'd be a what brother?
I would need a twin brother.
Oh, okay.
I like it.
Listen, Laura, you know why Jim won't debate you, right?
Oh, why?
Because you're smarter than him.
Sheriff, Jim would tell you that is not true because he's the smartest.
Well, Jim will also tell you that he played golf at the Tuscaloosa Country Club.
Yeah, you missed this yesterday, Laura. Jim called and said he had just gotten back from the golf course. So I just naturally asked him where he played.
Yeah.
And he said the Tuscaloosa Country Club, which made sense to me. I haven't been to that place in about 10 years, but we later found out it closed a year ago.
Oh.
So Jim was not telling the truth.
Oh.
Yeah,
well, that's odd.
Jim's kind of like a garbage truck. He's full of crap. How about that?
Well, maybe he got. Well, Sheriff, to be fair, guys, maybe he got confused about where he was. It happens to people sometimes.
Maybe he got confused because it was the pineapple on his pizza.
Yeah, well, that was another thing we talked about yesterday, but we'll skip that for today.
Well, Sheriff, how's Reeltown today?
Hey, but look. I was looking for Jim to come through and play at the Reeltown Country Club, but I hadn't seen him yet. So.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, if I see him, I will pass them your way. Hey, thank you for the call. Do appreciate it. We're up against a break after a couple of really
I like that Reeltown has a country club.
The Reeltown Country Club?
I'm going to have to go there. If someone will invite me, though.
I bet Charles will. But I know what. Yeah, anyway, we'll take a break. More of your phone calls at 855-242-7285. Laura in the house.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I've never felt more alive.
Disclaimer. Geico cannot guarantee you will feel more alive. You either possess functioning respiratory and circulatory systems, or you do not, or you are a zombie. If you are indeed a brain-starved zombie and you would like to save money on car insurance, the Geico legal team applauds your excellent life choices, even in your shambling afterlife. But we strongly encourage you to visit geico.com or download the Geico app. Please stay a minimum of 500 feet away from our large and presumably delicious, delicious brains.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Welcome back. Glad you're with us. Laura here, and we're taking your phone calls at 855-242-7285. Pretty quiet day, which is good.
That always means when it's a quiet day,
something's about to happen.
Something's about to happen. I don't know what quite yet, but I'm feeling it. I feel it in the breeze.
We went from 2 weeks ago at this point to arguably the craziest 48 hours in college football history. Last week was busy. Things by Thursday night were landing. But this week, and I say this Thursday afternoon, there has been virtually nothing happening. I'll be on call tonight and tomorrow because something is bad.
You just jinxed yourself big time. I hope you're ready to spend the night here.
I am. I've got a cot.
You know, we were having this discussion on the ESPN 2-hour of your show. You were saying that college football loses some momentum after the conference championship games and the selection show and all of that. Upon the time of the Heisman and the college football awards, it sort of becomes a little bit of a lull. I see that, but I still kind of like it. I don't think that this time of year, these couple of weeks that may be kind of seen as a little bit of a low point or maybe a loss of momentum, I think you sort of need that for these players to get healthy, for these teams to sort of figure themselves out, things to settle a little bit, especially in a year like this where we saw so many coaching changes and so many things happening. And by the way, we're mentioning things settling. For these schools, they're not, because early signing day has changed things dramatically. They are trying to prepare for so much coming down the pipe. By the way, still making important official visits or taking official visits and going to visit potential prospects in their homes as well.
Well, I think that's the main reason why everything was done by last week. This week, a year ago, I'm pretty sure Lane Kiffin, his announcement came out. The Ogeron thing had just happened. There were things going back and forth where you could not have waited until this week if you were a school looking for a coach.
Yeah, no, you couldn't have. And just in talking to some coaches over the last couple of weeks, one point that they brought up that I don't think a lot of people are talking about is just how much the early signing period affects bowl prep. Right. Now, for teams who are in the college football playoff, they almost have to say, hey, we've got to focus on the playoff. They have a little bit more time than some of these teams who are playing in bowl games more immediately, but it does factor in. You've got to focus on trying to wrap some of these kids up. A lot of schools expecting a good portion of their class to sign in this early signing day. If you miss out on some of those guys, you lose momentum there. We're already seeing some of that happen for some schools across the country where some players are decommitting or looking elsewhere. You've got to try to hold on to those guys while still preparing for a game that is certainly important as well.
Anyway, see what's going on the
let's
call.
See who's out there.
Rick, is in Pennsylvania. Rick, how are you doing?
How are you? All right, I'm doing fine. I want to say I watch your show every day, Paul, for 2 or 3 hours.
Thank you.
Pretty Laura, I think she's a wonderful person and a very good announcer.
Well, thanks, Rick.
I think in the playoffs, I think the SEC is going to win both games. I think Alabama will beat Clemson, and I think Georgia will beat Oklahoma, and it'll be an SEC championship. Me, I'm a season ticket holder of the Big Ten, Maryland, and Virginia, but I still say the SEC is number one in football. And Laura, you're lucky you live in Florida. Pennsylvania, it's 20 degrees above zero, and it is cold.
Yeah, Rick, let me correct
Rick.
you on that. Laura lives in Georgia, and last weekend, while some of us were dodging snow flurries, you had how much? What?
8 inches of snow
Whoa.
at my house, and we're a little north of Atlanta. But Rick, I mean, I'll admit, you certainly deal with it on a much more regular basis than I do. Hey, I want to know from somebody who's outside of the SEC, what do you think about an all-SEC championship game?
Well, I'm since I'm the only person that can hear you, since Rich has gone.
Did you? Oh, you let go of him?
Yeah.
Come on, Paul. I had a question for him. I thought he was still there. We could ask anybody that, though.
We'll ask someone else.
Okay, good.
Bill is in New Jersey, which is either north of Pennsylvania. Hello, depending on where you are in Pennsylvania. Bill, go right ahead.
Hello, Paul and Laura. Happy holidays. The first point I wanted to make is we have the Super Bowl in pro football. Why don't we give a name to the final game in college football and call it the College Bowl? It'd be a nice name.
Right now it's called the College Football Championship game.
College Football Playoff National
Championship. College Bowl would have a snappy name.
Yeah.
Now, the other point I was going to make is we have the whole month of December. Why can't we be like 1AA, use the month of December to work 8 teams down to a final game on New Year's Day? Because otherwise you're interfering with the NFL.
Totally agree.
People in January are into the NFL playoffs.
Bill, you're 100% correct. I still maintain college football has it wrong. They try to flirt with that second weekend or first weekend, depending on when it is. And the college football championship game is on Monday. It follows 2 days of the wild card games, which suck all the energy and all the life out of the sports world.
Yeah, and Bill, they that's why they have to play that game on a Monday, because of the point you're bringing up. There's so much NFL action, as Paul said, and you wonder, if they were able to compartmentalize it, sort of squish it together into maybe an expanded or extended playoff in some way, shape, or form, and then put themselves in an opportunity. I think you would run into so many complications because of the early signing period now, which is not going away anytime soon, and teams having a chance to get ready for these games in a way that they wouldn't have if they played immediately. Although, wouldn't you guys say Clemson would have rather just continued playing? Like, they were playing so hot that they might have said, we don't need time to get healthy.
I don't think it's that complicated, Laura, because you have last weekend, you have this weekend. Now, next weekend is lost. It's Christmas.
Yeah.
But you have 2 weekends in the month to deal with. But college football is they like to think they know what they're doing, and they've done fairly well, although they were so convinced that the games on New Year's Eve would be successful that they realized after trying to bullhead their way through that, it wasn't a very good idea. Ed is in Mississippi, and you are next up. Go right ahead,
Well,
Ed.
Laura, how are you doing? Listen, since today is complimentary day, you don't mind if I pile on. Let me say this, Laura Rutledge. You are a trailblazing pioneer in women's sports commentary for women of this nation. Your in-depth analysis is precise, accurate, enlightening, and right on.
Well, thank you, Ed. That is very kind of you. I appreciate it.
What I really wanted to call about is, Paul, I have always wondered this. For some reason, I have been under the impression that every time a team in the SEC, let's just take the SEC with 9 bowl appearances this year, that the television revenue is divided equally among the teams in the conference, whether they play or not. My question to you is this true? How is it divided? The television revenue, does it go to the head office, to the commissioner's office?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's bowl revenue is a little more complicated. I'm not going to answer until I get a little better. I don't want to go off on a tangent here and be wrong, but I'm pretty sure everyone gets a share, and then the conference gets a share.
Okay,
I believe that's
didn't know
correct.
if it went to the NCAA, then they take that little greasy hand out of it, or if it goes.
The NCAA does not get its hand in the college football.
Well, like I say, I just was hoping. I didn't know if each team in every conference that they're involved in gets a slice of the pie.
Well, what happens here is at the end of the year, every team gets a dollar amount. I do think if you're in the college football playoff, you get significantly more than if you're in the bowl game in Shreveport, for the sake of argument.
The Independence Bowl.
Okay,
well,
didn't know
I
if
can't
you saw
remember
it last
what was
night.
the sponsor
Mississippi
this year.
State walked through Oregon.
I'm sorry, because
it was remember when it was the Duck Commander Independence?
Yeah,
I did that game.
Oh, it was a Duck Commander.
And all those Duck Commander guys were there. Uncle Cy was there.
So you got to know them?
Not really. They really didn't have time for me, but I am a big fan of theirs.
I'll tell you, I was at it was actually Tim Tebow's benefit a couple of years ago, and who was does anybody know the Duck Dynasty names? There's Cy.
Cy and
Who's
Willie.
the guy with the beard? Willie. Is Willie the guy with the beard?
Willie's the main guy with the beard, and then there's Jace and.
Does Jace have a beard?
I think they all have beards.
Well, here's the funny thing. So
Phil.
Anyway,
Phil's the dad.
There's one that's really the least known of the group. I don't know his name.
Well, that would be Jace, I think.
Well, I'm not even sure he's on the show.
All right.
But he's like one of the guys.
Yeah.
So I run into, I think it's is Jace pretty well known?
No, Willie is well known.
Well, I run into Willie or somebody like in the men's room. Okay.
You always run into people in the men's room. It's so odd.
So the guy goes, "Hey, I'm like, well, I mean, it's one of those like you're trying to act like.
Who are you?
I mean, he knew me, and I knew he was one of the Duck Commander guys or whatever. So. What are they called again?
Duck Dynasty. I don't know. Honestly,
the Duck Dynasty guys.
Yeah.
So I sit down. I walk in. I sit at my table, and I don't really. I know the person next to me because she's Tebow had introduced me to her. So I'm talking to the guy. I say hello to him. I do not remember his name, and there's all these celebrities everywhere. So I say to the guy next to me, I say, "Hey, I just met one of the Duck Dynasty guys in the restroom." He goes, "I am one of the Duck Dynasty guys."
Oh, no. Paul, foot and mouth.
He was like, he's fairly well known. He was on the show, and then he took a sabbatical, whatever. But, I mean, I felt like just a total idiot.
Yeah, well, hey, any more names you want to drop?
Well, I
just dropped about everybody's name, known to man. That was good, though. I like that. I think that probably they all know who you are.
Yeah, well.
I bet they're big fans of yours.
For one day only, I hope they're not watching. George Schroeder is a name I know. If I ran into him in a mall, I would know him. Good friend. He'll be with us next. Welcome back to the program, the show.
Your show.
That never ends.
Yeah, no, we don't want it to end, especially not with George Schroeder here.
George Schroeder, I was reading his column today in USA Today about college football and some of the coaching hirings, and he joins us now. Come on down, George.
Glad to be here. I don't know where I'm coming, but I'm here.
Yeah, well, good to have you. I'll start with the coaching carousel because I thought you made some really interesting points. There were some really good decisions and some pretty epically bad decisions. You had Chip Kelly as the winner overall. That wasn't too hard to figure out. Take us through some of your best and worst.
Well, I mean, listen, I think Chip Kelly, if you're UCLA, you made the decision early. You fired Jim Mora, and you went directly after the guy you wanted. And had they not gotten Chip Kelly, had he, let's say, chosen the Florida job, then I think UCLA might have been casting about trying to find, okay, who's better than Jim Mora. But they did get him, so they clearly knew they had a shot at him. And, it's no secret that he was the hottest available candidate ever since the day that the 49ers let him go last January. So I thought that was an easy no-brainer. I also thought this. I know I mentioned Florida. They ended up with what, and you know how this goes. Nobody's ever going to admit this. But Dan Mullen was essentially their third choice, and I think it's a great hire. And so I also gave them an A, too. I think it's a great hire. It's also an indication of how a coaching search can go. That was the best available job. You don't always get the guy you want, even when you have the best available job. But if you have a plan, you can still end up with a really good hire, and that's what they had. So I thought that was a good one. On the other end of the spectrum, I think, is at this point at least, and I'll be happy to be proven wrong, is the idea of Arizona State firing Todd Graham to hire Herm Edwards, who is a tremendous man and knows a ton of football, but hasn't coached anywhere in a long time and in college for almost 30 years. And then when you add that to the fact that they apparently are going to try to they're going to reinvent the college football program wheel in how they do it, and he's almost sounds more like a GM than a head coach. It just gets weird. And so I had them at the other end of the spectrum. I didn't give anybody an F because there's no way to know on these things. But that one felt like a D to me.
Yeah, George, really fascinating stuff. And I think we'll look back on this year and see these grades that kind of everybody's giving and just see how it all ends up playing out and just wonder. Yeah. But when you think about what happened this year with so much change, do you think we ended up with almost a shortage of coaches available for some of these jobs?
Yeah, I do think so. And I actually thought maybe one or two of those might not open up for that reason. But, yes, I mean, when you look around at sort of who the candidates end up being, I'll give you one example. So Oregon, which, by the way, may be the most unlucky program in each of in the last 12 and a half months. They get rid of Mark Helfrich. Chip Kelly's not available because he's still with the 49ers, or I think he might have come back to Oregon. And then a month later, after they've hired Willie Taggart, he gets, his walking papers from the 49ers. So then Willie Taggart, late in the coaching carousel cycle, gets the Florida State job because obviously Jimbo had gone to Texas A&M. And now, had Chip been available, they'd probably get him again. Scott Frost might have been their coach had Nebraska not been out looking for a coach this year. And instead, they suddenly are up against the early signing date, which is a piece of this. It's really changed some of the coaching carousel, at least this year. And they end up going with a stability hire with Mario Cristobal, who was, on staff as a co-offensive coordinator. I'm not saying that's not a good hire. It might turn out to be, but it's a far cry maybe from what the Ducks thought they could have gotten. And I think that speaks to what you're talking about maybe a dearth of candidates, at least at the end of the cycle.
George, I want to talk about a story that we got a little more clarification on today. About a week and a half ago, the story broke about Rodney Anderson out at OU. And at first glance, it looked like maybe it was deja vu all over again. It didn't turn out that way. I want you to take us through the storyline here, because if you're an Oklahoma fan, it had a fairly good result today.
Right, and let me just start by saying, obviously, and I know you believe this too, that football is the least thing in this situation. But Rodney Anderson, the Cleveland County District Attorney, Cleveland County is where Norman, Oklahoma is, declined today, announced that he declined to pursue charges. And he went further than that. It wasn't just one of those deals where we don't think we have enough evidence to actually make a case. He actually said, and I think I'm going to get this quote right, definitely the charges were not warranted in this case. And they had a thorough investigation between the Norman Police Department, this is his word, thorough, and the district attorney's office, and determined that they did not believe that the allegations warranted charges. And so basically what happened is Rodney Anderson apparently met a woman at a bar, a former Oklahoma student at a bar last month. They ended up at her apartment. Things happened. She seemed happy, according to testimony from her friends in police interviews, tried to pursue a relationship with him several times, and at the time that he stopped returning her texts, she went to the police and filed for an emergency protective order, and then this investigation began, and this was about 3 weeks after the alleged incident. So I don't really know. As the district attorney said, the alleged victim may believe that things happened that she did not give consent to, but all of the evidence pointed to Rodney Anderson having been innocent in this case, and so they declined to pursue charges.
Yeah, you never know how some of these things are going to go, George,
That's
but
right.
Interesting the way this one ended up playing out. And when you look to the football field in the college football playoff, what is your take, first of all, on that Rose Bowl that we'll see Oklahoma and Georgia playing in it?
Well, I know everybody's excited about Clemson, Alabama 3, and I get that, and I get why. But to me, it's a fascinating clash of sort of football culture when you get to Oklahoma versus Georgia. So that's the one I'm more excited about, at least for now. Whoever we get in the final will be tremendous. And I actually think all four teams could win. This feels like that for the first time in the maybe that we've got a situation where there's no real clear favorite. I guess people would say Clemson. But Oklahoma with that offense, Georgia has a really good defense, and obviously they want to grind the ball on offense. And I just think it's a tremendous culture war. I'm really, really looking forward to it. You get the whole Big 12 versus the SEC narrative and all that kind of stuff. We get another look at Baker Mayfield and his antics, and frankly, his performance on the field, which is, outweighs the antics. And so that, to me, is the more intriguing of the two semis.
Finally, to flip that around, how do you think the nation would react to an Alabama-Georgia final?
Well, it would be interesting. I know that the folk on your network would be really excited. I don't know how the rest of the nation would feel, but let me say this. I think it would be a lot different because, in the week and a half or whatever it's been now since the field was announced, there really hasn't, there was some minor controversy about whether it should be Alabama or Ohio State, but we really haven't seen a lot of people really upset about having two teams from one league or two teams from the SEC specifically. So I don't think that if you end up with Alabama and Georgia, it's going to have the same shockwave on the one hand and just sort of people being upset on the other hand that we saw when LSU and Alabama played that rematch back after the 2011 season. I don't think it's certainly not going to change things in terms of like, we need to go to 6 or 8. But I haven't sensed that people are going to get really upset about it because I think with 4 teams, there's a sense that everybody gets a shot to play in there. This is not a deal where Oklahoma State was left out, and a lot of people were like, well, hey, why didn't they get their shot? These two teams will have won their way in.
That's a good point. Yeah, it wasn't just gifted. Hey, George, thank you very much. If we don't talk to you, have a Merry Christmas, and we will see you very soon.
Thanks, George.
Yeah, hey, thank you, guys.
Great stuff. George Schroeder, one of the truly class sports writers in the country from USA Today. We'll take a break, get your reaction to all that, 855-242-7285. More to come on a Thursday. Welcome back in as we continue here on this Thursday afternoon. Joe is up next. Joe, go right ahead. Hey, Joe.
Hey, sorry, Paul. This is Joe. Sorry I haven't called you in the last couple of days, but I've been doing something that you said I couldn't do. I've been swallowing a lot of loss. And I didn't want to tell you nothing about it. But I need to make some apologies. Yes, I am retired, and I am retired from one of the professional teams in America, and we don't lose, so that's why it's hard to take a loss. But I need to apologize to Miss Laura. How are you doing? This is the first time I've ever got to talk to you. I'm sorry I didn't get you that job. I tried hard to get you that job, but I couldn't do it. And I need to tell Mark that after I listened to the tape, I didn't mean to sound like I was trying to be a butt to him.
Don't be a butt now.
I just wanted to, he asked me why my picks and selections. I don't give my picks and selections to anybody because I found out some guys were using them to bet, and I didn't like that. And I was just trying to bait him into just a friendly competition thing. And what I called for was, Paul, I heard you talking about your hole-in-one the other day. After I retired, I went and got a degree in golf course management and turf management, and I was on the course I built my way up to supervisor and superintendent, and we had a tournament coming, and it was supposed to start at 6 o'clock, and they told me it was going to start at 6:30. Well, at 6 o'clock, I was out running the course, and I was in the rough, and I picked up a ball in the rough, and you ain't supposed to do that, but the tournament hadn't started. And then it come out to be that this elderly old man come chasing me down and said that that's his ball. And I know nothing about golf. I know nothing about golf players. I just love working the course. And so everybody said, well, you need to get his signature, get his autograph. I'm like, okay. So now, have you ever heard of a golf player that his name is Zollie? I have no idea.
Fuzzy Zoeller?
Yeah.
He's a pretty famous golfer. He won the U.S. Open.
Do you have his autograph?
I don't have his autograph. Well, thanks for that. He's also pretty famous for probably one of the great faux pas in golf history when he made fun of Tiger Woods not long after, right before he won the Masters, and it pretty much came close to ruining his career because he lost a bunch of endorsements.
Yeah,
he was a very funny, popular guy. He was never funny after that.
You can't make fun of Tiger.
Well, yeah, no, but
at that point, the way that he did it was really bad.
Was outrageous. Yeah,
right.
I mean, I actually, I was about 5 yards away from him under the oak tree at Augusta when he said it. He was just rambling along. People,
oh, really?
And I can't say I was listening very closely because I didn't really care what Fuzzy Zoeller had to say. But you could tell he got on a roll. He was entertaining the masses, and he just went off the rails.
Yeah,
and he paid a terrible price.
You should have
for
stopped him in his tracks, Paul. What were you doing?
I didn't know him very well.
Yeah, come on, Fozzie.
I think his real name was Forrest. Forrest Fuzzy Zoeller.
Okay,
great golfer in his time.
Good name.
Becky is in Mobile, Alabama. Hello, Becky.
Hey, Paul. Hey, Laura.
Hey, Becky.
I have a couple of questions for y'all. I would like to know y'all's opinion on Jalen Hurts. Can he throw accurately into tight coverage under pressure? The second one is, has either one of y'all seen any improvement in Jalen's passing game from last year's national championship to this year's passing? All my Bama friends and family call me Helen, as in Helen Keller, saying I'm not seeing that he's like the greatest player in college football today, and I'm just not seeing it. I don't believe that Jalen can pass, and I'd just like to know y'all's opinion on it.
Well, Laura, you've covered a lot of Alabama football. You were at the spring game, so you saw him there, and you've seen him all year long. Has he progressed?
I think he's progressed. I think there are still people who would say that he could be better in that area. He's still a sophomore, by the way. And he continues to show why just being dynamic as an athlete has been beneficial to Alabama's offense. Now, their offense, it obviously sputtered a little bit down the stretch there. I expect them to be much better offensively in this game against Clemson. And yes, Jalen Hurts can throw into tight coverage. He's proven that before. I can think of a specific pass in the Mississippi State game where he was able to charge down the field, and he was throwing into majorly tight coverage and completing those passes. There are times where you can get frustrated with him, and I just don't think it's warranted. So I would be in the category of Becky's friends who say that Jalen is – I just think there are some Alabama fans that don't appreciate him as much as they should.
Joe, what about you? How are you?
I'm doing good, Paul. How are you?
Excellent.
And how are you, Miss Laurel?
I'm great. Great to hear from you.
Well, I'm on the Jalen Hurts bandwagon. I think he's getting better, and I agree with what you said, Laura. He's just a sophomore, so he done went through a lot in just 2 years just to be a sophomore, more than most quarterbacks have. And but are you going to be covering a game this weekend, Laura?
I am not this weekend. I'm covering a game next week, so I'll be with Paul on Monday and Tuesday next week, and then I actually head to the Bahamas. I'm doing the UAB game. I'm really excited about it, actually. Not just because it's in the Bahamas, but
Joe, while she's heading to the Bahamas, I'll be right here in the wintertime.
I'll be sending you photos of me poolside.
I just blocked you on Instagram.
Oh, okay, whatever. Yeah, you don't have an Instagram. If
you do.
Oh, I do. Yeah, and then Joe, after that, going to the Sugar Bowl. So, and Paul and I will be there together.
Oh, well, cool. That'll be good. I can't wait to watch it.
Two of us in New Orleans, Joe, sounds pretty dangerous.
Bourbon Street, let's go.
Yeah.
Are y'all going to have a Finebaum film room for that game?
Yeah, it has not officially been announced
really
yet, but
one.
yeah, there will actually be 2 film rooms this year.
Breaking news.
Boop. Well, those are the ones I like to watch.
Yeah, there'll be one for the Georgia game and one for the Bama game.
What a great day it's going to be.
And I was going to tell you, Paul, my campaign's kind of hit a roadblock. It's I'm having endorsement problems. Donors, and I just don't want to say that.
See you in a minute, Joe. This week, tune in to the Paul Finebaum Show as I discuss
the delicious taste of ice cold Dr. Pepper.
Larry Culpepper? Hey, I'm in the middle of a promo.
Sorry, Finey. The fans are craving so much Dr. Pepper, I thought I'd borrow some of your airtime.
Security!
Hey, look, whether you're watching college football or calling into some guy's radio show, Dr. Pepper makes college football that much sweeter. So head to your local Dollar General and grab some today.
Can I have one of yours?
Hey, we got a caller. You're on the Larry Culpepper Show with your host, Larry Culpepper.
That's it.
That's Dr. Pepper, the one fans crave.
Laura Rutledge is here, and we're happy. I mean,
this is great.
You were here for like a minute Monday, then you had to.
I didn't like Monday because I just feel like Mondays
are for you.
We commit to being together, and
Saturdays
I had to
are
leave.
for the boys and girls.
They better be for the girls too. You know what, Paul? I heard you one time say they were for the boys, and I haven't quite forgiven you for that.
That's okay.
They can be for everybody, though. Saturdays are even, for people's pets.
When you're at a campus and the frat boys are desperately hoping to videotape you say that, you say what they want.
Yeah, you love the frat boys when we go to campuses. I've noticed this. You really pander to them a little bit.
I do.
I think what we should do for a goal for next football season, and back me up on this, people out there, we should get Paul to crowd surf one Saturday before a game after SEC Nation, or maybe even before. Would you crowd surf for real?
I will do anything.
I think you would get pretty far out in the crowd. Some people don't get very far because they're too heavy, but you'd be able to lift you up.
What I really like most is when people lift me up.
Raise you. What is it? What's that song? Raise You Up?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm forgetting how to sing it, but anyway.
We'll have Mr. Jones come out and give you the Sunday announcements.
Okay. Anyone on the phone lines?
Yes, there are.
Let's talk to them.
Man, you're like one of these producers.
Come on.
I mean, I'm just
take some calls.
Taking my time here. You're rushing me through the show. Eric is up next in California.
Hey, what's going on, Paul? How you doing, Laura?
What's up?
Hey, I just wanted to ask, you were talking about the family, and I wanted to see if this diehard USC fan, Pac-12 guy, could get adopted into the family.
Get in
if
here.
I could tell you
Get in the family. You're already part of the family.
All right,
calling in.
I want to tell you a little story real quick. When I lived in Ohio, about the time Hurricane Katrina hit, I had a friend of mine ask me, he said, "You want to make $1,700? We're taking trailers down to Lake Charles, Louisiana." So when I got there, I went to a restaurant, and I asked the lady, there was a lady of color, and I said, "Man, I've always been hearing about this good soul cooking. I'm from Los Angeles. Can you expose me to it?" And she was like, "Yes, honey." So she gave me some briskets. She gave me briskets and some pork and beans, corn and cornbread, and it was so good that I had it. At the end, I took a couple plates home to my wife and my son.
Brisket will do that to you.
It was great. Huh?
Yeah, brisket will do that to you. You get addicted to it.
So I wanted to know, me being that, if I could get adopted into the family.
Yeah, you're already in. You're
That's
no
right.
matter what, you're in. We're very inclusive in this family, and we take people from no matter where they are in the world, and especially if you like barbecue. It's important.
That's right. The briskets were awesome. But let me ask you guys a little bit about football, about the USC-Ohio State game. Me being a USC guy, I just really feel like that we're going to win that game. What do you guys think?
Well, USC has historically won that game a lot, and one thing, Eric, I think Ohio State probably had a little more to be disappointed about, although USC should have been, I think, a little more in the conversation on Selection Sunday. The problem is both teams did have bad losses, and so I think that's what ended up kind of leaving them a little bit on the outside looking in, even in the conversation about the day. To me, USC may be a little more motivated from that standpoint. It's hard to say that an Ohio State Urban Meyer coach team is not going to be motivated, but I just wonder, with USC kind of feeling snubbed there toward the end of the season, if maybe that works in their favor a little more. And if you look at it on the field and kind of take the motivation out of it, you've got an edge at quarterback, you've got an edge in a few other positions on the field, and I think if this is in fact Sam Darnold's last game, he's going to come out there ready to sling it and ready to prove something.
Laura, I feel stupid a lot in my life, but I was talking earlier about some of the most famous people in this country, and I think I made a fool out of myself because I couldn't remember. I met the Duck Dynasty guys at a function, and these are, at one time, this was one of the most popular shows in the country, but I couldn't remember which one I had met, and apparently one of them
he's
was
contacted
watching.
us.
Yeah, so did we have this, Mark?
Jace Robertson.
Yeah.
He says, "Tell Finebaum it was me he met at the Tim Tebow bash. The guy he overlooked was Friar Martin, D.C., and for the record, I am way better liked and known than Willie Boss Hogg." Because remember, I was telling you Willie might have been somebody else.
So, Laura,
you met Justin Martin was the other guy.
Yeah, he was, I think, sitting next to me. So Jace, he's one of the most iconic personalities in that family, and I didn't know who he was.
I'm embarrassed for you.
For those who, I think we said that during a break. For the radio people, I'll just tell the story. I was at the Tebow dinner a couple of years ago, and I ran into Jace. Now that I realize it, in the men's room. So I sat down. For those who missed the story earlier, and everybody's saying hello to each other, and there's major celebrities everywhere. The band Perry was like one table over. A lot of baseball players. I rode over with I think Marcus Allen and Archie Griffin, who won 2 Heisman trophies. Archie is Griffin? I can't remember his name now.
Griffin. You've got me confused.
I don't know what his name.
Yeah.
He'll tweet at me now.
Yeah, come on.
Which one is it, Mark?
We're making mistakes all over the place. Anyway.
3 Heismans between the two of them. So I sit down, and everybody's talking, hey, look who's there. And I tell the guy next to me, I said, you'll never believe, I just met one of the Duck Dynasty guys in the restroom. He goes, I am one of the Duck Dynasty guys. So anyway, we'll put this tweet back up on the screen. This is Jace, who's one of the better known of the Duck Dynasty guys. So I
think he was the first name I listed off, and I'm not as cool as you to have met them the way you did. Now, I did meet them at the Duck Dynasty Independence Bowl a few years ago, but wow, Paul, you have really been schooled today on this.
I have an expertise with a certain group of people.
Yeah.
Like,
who are those people?
Senators, Supreme Court justices, television network executives, but I don't know much about the rest of the world.
Yeah, I think we need to get you some more free time so you can be a little more familiar with some of these
I mean,
celebrities.
we have been together and have met fairly well-known people, and I'll tell a story about my wife if you want. I don't think I've ever told this story. We're at a party a couple of months ago. Actually, I knew the person this time.
Oh.
Have I told you the story? So we're at a party in near Malibu, and it was supposed to be a lot of the Hollywood elite. So my wife, heard Piers Bronson was going to be there, or Warren Beatty. She's looking around. This guy walks in. I said, this guy that walked in is the biggest star at this party. She looked, and she clearly did not know who he was. So he's walking around, and I see him eyeing me, and I'm going, there's no way. I mean, you've been there.
You guys had a moment across the room.
So he looks at me, and he's walking over to me, and I'm like, it's kind of like, are you looking around? This guy is not walking
You're
over
looking
to me.
over your shoulder,
So
he surely couldn't be looking at me.
He stops, and I mean, he's right in front of me, so I said, Larry, I'm Paul Finebaum. He goes, I know who you are. And we started talking. I introduced him to my wife, and she still didn't know who he was.
Okay, who is he?
Larry David.
Oh, well, that's a big deal.
And
okay.
So we're talking, and he asked me, he said, do you live in L.A.? I'm going, no. I said, how long have you lived here? Oh, then my wife said, I want to say, at that point I want to say, no, don't say anything. She goes, well, you live here? I'm like, yeah. He goes, yeah. He said, I moved out here 25 years ago. And I know what the next thing he's about to say is. He said, he looks directly at Linda and goes, we had a TV pilot. And I go, well, how'd that work out? And he just cracked up. For those who don't know the punchline to the Larry David story, he was the creator of Seinfeld.
Yes.
And I had to explain that to him.
But you have to be now. I don't meet many people who are not Seinfeld fans, honestly. But you would have to be a pretty intense Seinfeld fan, I think, to know that, or at least.
This week, tune in to the Paul Finebaum Show as I discuss
the delicious taste of ice cold Dr. Pepper.
Larry Culpepper? Hey, I'm in the middle of a promo.
Sorry, Finey. The fans are craving so much Dr. Pepper, I thought I'd borrow some of your airtime.
Security!
Hey, look, whether you're watching college football or calling into some guy's radio show, Dr. Pepper makes college football that much sweeter. So head to your local Dollar General and grab some today.
Can I have one of yours?
Hey, we got a caller. You're on the Larry Culpepper Show with your host, Larry Culpepper.
That's it.
That's Dr. Pepper, the one fans crave.
And we welcome you to what day is it? Thursday?
It's Thursday.
Yeah,
I don't know what day it is though.
You've been all over.
I never do.
Man, welcome back.
It's good to be back with you. I will admit Monday was weird not being here because I obviously I missed you, but I just missed everybody. I mean, it was weird. I felt very empty on Monday, so I'm glad we could do this today.
You had to head off to a mandatory company meeting.
I did. Somehow, it's weird. You got out of it. I'm confused by that.
It was yesterday, and they felt like.
Well, you're just too important.
Someone needed to be here.
Yeah, no, I mean, you were here, and we appreciate you for your service on this show.
Thank you. I was apparently the only person out there, though.
By the way, you really were. You have decorated this studio very well, Paul. I'm impressed by your holiday spirit and the way that you have put out so many poinsettias. I mean, it feels very...
Have you
very festive in here?
Have you put up your Christmas? Because you haven't been home probably in about a month.
I have a fake tree up, which I will say there are people out there that would judge me for having a fake tree. I can't.
Why be concerned about that?
Well, I don't care exactly, which is why I just own up to my fake tree, and I like it. I think it's good, and that's about all I have going. I have a fake tree, a couple of wreaths.
We have a wreath. Is it a wreath?
Wreath. Did you put an F on the end of that?
I don't know what I put on it.
Okay, good.
We have a wreath on the door.
Oh, nice.
A wreath, not a reefer.
I hope not. That'd be interesting. We're off to a good start.
We have a wreath.
Yeah. Okay.
On the door. Although what are the round things called?
The balls?
The balls. One of the balls fell. I jammed it back in so my wife wouldn't blame it on me for slamming the door too hard.
It was definitely
Anyway,
you.
we have a really big show on tap. George Schroeder. But he has a reef on his door, too. Billy Liucci. Scott Hamilton. Damian Harris will be by later. We love Damian. And your phone calls at 855-242-7285. So you've been up in the great Northeast?
Yeah, it's a little chilly up there.
I bet it wasn't that warm.
I am a Southern girl, born and raised, and so I try to tough it out in the cold, but I'm just not quite built for it. I try, and it just there was a moment yesterday in Bristol, Connecticut. It said that the wind chill made it feel about 6 degrees. I think it felt about -6,
yeah,
and
that's a cold place.
We were trying to talk, and you know what happens when it gets really cold? I know you've experienced this before. Maybe TMI, but you start to have boogers coming out that you can't even feel. And people were having that, and you don't know if you should tell them.
That's why I wear a mask when I'm in the cold weather.
Yeah, no, you do. Yeah, you have to. And your lips are so numb that you can't talk, and you just sound a mess. So yeah, no, but it was good. I'm glad to be back though in the South, where I would say where I belong.
We're glad to have you back.
Yeah.
And it was just fairly mundane without you on Monday.
Well, I've heard that Jim was wanting to call in and talk to me, so I'm wondering if he's going to call in today. I'd love to talk to him if he wants to call in and speak about anything.
I'm glad you want to talk to him.
No, I do. Yeah, I hope we hear from him. I hope we hear from everybody. I can't wait to hear from as many people as want to talk to us today.
So are you wearing something different today?
I'm wearing a necklace that Millie sent me. You know, Paul, the last necklace that Millie sent me, you stole and gave to your wife, which is fine. I understand that.
I mean, she didn't know. Well, actually,
you regifted
it. I haven't given it to her yet. It's under the tree.
I hope she's not. I hope Linda's not listening. But anyway, yeah. So Millie, thank you very much for this.
Linda doesn't even know we're on right now.
Well, neither does Josh, but I really love this necklace, and I appreciate Millie for sending that. It's such a kind gesture, and it happened to match what I was wearing today. I would have worn it anyway. When I opened this letter from her, it was great to put on. So we love the Finebaum family.
We will grab some phone calls here, and we start with this guy's. To me, if you ever were starting a program, a radio show, this would be my host. Listen to this guy's voice. Hugh in Deep Gap, North Carolina.
Paul, you are entirely too kind, my friend. I appreciate that. Can you hear me all right? I'm working a new phone system here, and I'm not sure it's all that great.
You sound great, Hugh.
A couple of things. I've been watching or listening and watching your show when I have free afternoons. And the whole discussion about all of these young defensive coordinators that are made head coaches, I've sort of got an observation. I think they have a difficult time resting the proper assistant coaches to forge good offensive schemes and the ability to keep them accountable and retainable. And it seems to be much more difficult for defensive coaches than offense coaches. I think, and I am a Kentucky fan, graduate, love that school, but I think Tennessee has made a really good decision in bringing back the football godfather of the Tennessee program in the old coach, because he has sufficient standing with a lot of young coaches to maybe help Coach Pruitt come up with good people and put them on the right track to keep them accountable. I know in Kentucky's case, they've had 3 sets of offensive coordinators in 5 years, and it's kind of a miracle in some ways that their offensive line and Benny Snell has managed to lead the Southeastern Conference in yardage gain between the tackles. And if they had a passing game to go with it and some defense, they might be good. But anyhow, that was my thought for the day. I would really like for you to check with Booger and Big Swagoo about a question that I have about defense at the college level. Kentucky's been trying to run a 3-man front, and the truth of the matter is, whether it's the Locke kid from Missouri or the new kid playing down at Ole Miss, if you've got a quarterback that can high point the ball and deliver it, you give them 6 or 8 seconds back there, they're going to kill you. I don't care how good your defensive backs are. And I'm really disappointed that Coach Stoops, as a defensive specialist, hasn't been able to resolve those difficulties.
That's a great point. Hey, Hugh, thank you very, very much for the call. Brings up some interesting points.
Right. And, I mean, the differences between 3-4 and 4-3 is so much of it is personnel-based, and I understand what he's talking about. But the problem is these types of defensive linemen that can really make a difference in a four-man front just do not grow on trees. You're not going to find that many of them. You know, Alabama finds a lot of them, obviously, and you see a team like Georgia having them. I think it's something that's difficult to do. I was actually recently talking to Coach Stoops about just some of the recruiting challenges that they have there in Kentucky. He wasn't making excuses, but they're not able to pull from the same talent bed. So you kind of have to make your scheme around what you can do best with the personnel you have on your team. So I think that's where a lot of it comes into play with trying to decide whether you're going to go 3-4 or 4-3. But he's right, Hugh, is that you become susceptible to guys who can throw the football and to receivers that can create separation if you're relying on your defensive backs to do so much. But, I would still say that what Kentucky has done with the challenges they face from a recruiting standpoint, they should have beat Florida this year, but they have still done admirably well, in my opinion, with what they're up against.
More phone calls here. Sheriff is up next. Hello, Sheriff.
Hey, man.
How are you?
Paul, Florida, how y'all doing?
Great. How are you?
Oh, man. If I got any better, I'd need a twin brother. Look, Laura,
you'd be a what brother?
I would need a twin brother.
Oh, okay.
I like it.
Listen, Laura, you know why Jim won't debate you, right?
Oh, why?
Because you're smarter than him.
Sheriff, Jim would tell you that is not true because he's the smartest.
Well, Jim will also tell you that he played golf at the Tuscaloosa Country Club.
Yeah, you missed this yesterday, Laura. Jim called and said he had just gotten back from the golf course. So I just naturally asked him where he played.
Yeah.
And he said the Tuscaloosa Country Club, which made sense to me. I haven't been to that place in about 10 years, but we later found out it closed a year ago.
Oh.
So Jim was not telling the truth.
Oh.
Yeah,
well, that's
Jim's kind of like a garbage truck. He's full of crap. How about that?
Well, maybe he got. Well, Sheriff, to be fair, guys, maybe he got confused about where he was. It happens to people sometimes.
Maybe he got confused because it was the pineapple on his pizza.
Yeah, well, that was another thing we talked about yesterday, but we'll skip that for today.
Well, Sheriff, how's Reeltown today?
Hey, but look. I was looking for Jim to come through and play at the Reeltown Country Club, but I hadn't seen him yet. So.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, if I see him, I will pass him your way. Hey, thank you for the call. Do appreciate it.
What he did at Memphis and to come over, and he's already made a pretty big impression. And his Texas roots go back so far, and A&M roots. He was a GA at A&M. That's where he started his career under Jackie Sherrill. So I think that was a good hire for the state of Texas, and you look at what Memphis has done offensively. He fits into Jimbo's scheme. He's going to keep, from everything I've heard, he's going to keep Jim Turner, the offensive line coach. And then you hired one of the nation's best recruiters in Tim Brewster, and his reputation precedes him. He's already kind of hit the ground running, not just in Texas, but nationally. And Jay Graham and Damian Craig coming over with him from Florida State. So that side of the ball is done. I think he went out and handpicked exactly who he wanted on that side of the ball. The only name that came up that's not here was James Coley from Georgia, who they made a run at and ended up staying up there as wide receiver coach. That's the only name that you even heard outside. So he really was getting his pick of the litter there on offense. Defensively is going to be really interesting because right now they're going to keep Terry Price as a holdover. And I think, Paul, without knowing specifically who it is at this point, I think they're possibly as early as today going to finish out and close out a deal with the D coordinator. So I think you'll start to see those dominoes fall really quickly on that side of the ball as well, where whoever he hires will probably bring a guy or two with him, and this staff could be wrapped up pretty quickly.
Always great to catch you up, Billy. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks,
Always.
Billy.
I can't remember the Turkey prime minister or the offensive coordinator.
Get some research in on Turkey. Come on.
Right, guys,
Billy heard the word turkey. He lost the train of thought. He thought he was about to eat.
Stop.
Billy, thanks for the time. Good stuff from Billy Liucci from TexAgs.com. We'll take a break. More of your phone calls when we come back. A little thing at the grocery store and get my picture made. Welcome back to the program. We had Scott Hamilton on the program a couple of weeks ago talking about the Heisman and the top 25. He is a voter. And it's always good to welcome you back, Scott. Hope the end of the season has been well. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Paul. How you doing, bud?
We're doing great. Laura Rutledge is here, and we have a lot to talk to you about. Certainly the Heisman's, there isn't much to talk about there. Maybe one of the least interesting Heismans, but I do want to get your thoughts. First of all, we actually were talking about Wake Forest a minute ago in the against A&M. You're certainly not too far removed from that part of the country. Is that a game that Wake Forest is interested in?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is a chance for them to take another step under Dave Clawson. What Dave Clawson is incredible, Paul. I mean, this is a guy who won 3 games, and then they got that breakthrough winning season last year, and they just keep trending upward, and they're doing it with offense. I mean, I saw some putrid things the first couple of years, Paul. I'm really into putrid. I saw a game against Virginia Tech that I thought would make the forward pass go out of style. I mean, it was terrible, 0-0 at the end of regulation. And now here they are putting up points.
Yeah, Scott, what do you think on the A&M side of things could really do a lot to challenge Wake?
I don't know. You've got to try to change up the coverages, I think. But Wake Forest, though, has got a veteran quarterback in John Wolford back there. But he's one of those guys who might try to press a little bit on occasion, who might try to make something out of nothing. And sometimes that can bite him. That can bite him in the rear end. But they're doing a good job of eliminating mistakes. And that's Dave Clawson football, man. Control it, eliminate it, do your thing.
Scott Hamilton with us. Scott, I mentioned a minute ago you were a Heisman voter. When you were in here, I believe it was in mid-October, we were talking about the Heisman. And it was a very lackluster race for the Heisman. However, I am interested in who was on your ballot because I've been told that you left someone off pretty significant.
Yeah, the people in the great state of Oklahoma are questioning my heritage. I've heard a few interesting things. I did not put Baker Mayfield on my ballot, Paul.
And why is that, Scott?
I'm glad you followed up.
I'm already I can see they're blowing up here. I'm on the All-American panel for the Associated Press as well, and he's my first-team All-American quarterback. I think he's a fantastic year. I enjoy watching him play, but I don't enjoy all of the. And Paul, I'm sure you agree with me on this because we touched on it somewhat when I visited you a few weeks ago. The Heisman is just you're expected to live up to a certain standard, and I thought that Baker Mayfield did not do that. I mean, we have video of him doing things that Roger Staubach would never do, that Barry Sanders would never do. And I get it. I get being competitive. I get being emotional. But you've got your school's jersey on, and there are certain things you cannot do. I'm not even talking about the arrest last year. That was a non-issue by the time the season had started. It was background noise. But going out there and taunting Baylor, for goodness sakes, taunting Kansas, for goodness sakes, I think it's poor form, and I think it's unbecoming of the most iconic trophy in sports.
So what did your ballot look like, Scott?
Well, I had Bryce Love first. And I think the whole deal could have been much closer, Paul, if Love had been healthy the entire year. I think he was a phenomenal player. Lost a little bit because of the whole West Coast late time thing. But I had him first. I had Lamar Jackson second. Has anybody ever had a repeat season after winning a Heisman that got less attention than what Lamar Jackson did? I thought he had another incredible year for a team that was actually worse than last year. And then Johnson, Auburn, had him third. I realized how valuable he was in the SEC championship game because when he's not 100%, that was a totally different Auburn team. So those are my three: Love, Jackson, Johnson.
I mean, I have a lot of friends in Oklahoma too, so I can guess how they have reacted. What have you heard from them?
This is a family show, Paul. I can't do that. I can't do that. No, they're upset. And think about this, and this is a question you guys discuss as long as you want. Is Oklahoma the school that we should look at now as being a quarterback factory? Because they've been putting out a lot of award-winning quarterbacks in recent years. Not necessarily NFL-caliber quarterbacks, but Heisman Trophy-winning quarterbacks. We don't talk about it enough.
Yeah, that's a good point, Scott, because, and especially in Baker Mayfield's case, he was a walk-on. He walked on 2 places, and they were able to get him to the point of what he's doing now. I think that's a point that is probably worth getting out there.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up at the age of the triple option and Charles Thompson and Jamel Holloway, but that was a long time ago. This is a team that has been throwing it up and down the field for a couple of decades now, and Baker Mayfield had perhaps the best statistical season of any quarterback we've ever seen when you break it down. Maybe Oklahoma's the quarterback.
Scott, back to your decision. Listen, you have every right to vote for anyone you want, but was this a protest vote not putting him there, or did you really just not believe he was the best or most outstanding player?
Now, see, most outstanding player, though, Paul, I think there's a plurality to that. You have to be excellent on the field in the way you perform and excellent in the way you behave. You'll go to the Heisman website that clearly outlines.
I've been there.
Yeah, and your sportsmanship is a part of it. Sportsmanship is a part of this award, and I just felt he was lacking that. I love his game. I love his story. God bless him in the NFL. I hope he has a fantastic career, but I just was not putting him on my ballot. And I spoke to a couple of other voters that had him not first, but had them on their ballots. And I said, look, by just having him on a ballot, your second-place vote, your third could, possibly, not likely, but possibly be what determines the whole thing. I wasn't going to take that chance. I just didn't feel he was Heisman worthy.
Well, listen, that is always the dilemma, and I must confess, after his second incident, I was concerned about it, but he did apologize. You didn't buy that tearful apology, Scott?
We're a society that's really good at apologizing over and over and over again. It should never have gotten to the second or third incident. Not in my mind. I'll give you one. I mean, the arrest was one thing. We're all making mistakes when we're kids. I'll give you 2. And you maybe say something to the other team that's inappropriate. But when you got 2, I just think it wasn't enough to keep him on my Heisman ballot.
Good to catch up. It sounds like Baker's trying to get you off the air with the gremlins in your cell.
Baker sent some stormtroopers to Scott's phone.
Baker's coming after you, Scott. Hey, thanks. Appreciate
He's giving out my cell number. That's what.
Uh-oh, watch out.
We're about to as well. Only in Oklahoma, though.
Norman, we just tweeted it to him.
Yeah. Hey, Scott, we'll see you soon.
Scott.
Thanks very much.
Appreciate it, guys.
Good to hear. Listen, we'll talk about it in a minute. It's his right. He has a vote. He can do whatever with it he wants, just like voters in elections can write in Nick Saban if they want.
Yeah, and like we said, we'll dive into it a little deeper, but, man, Baker Mayfield should have won the Heisman. That's it. It's as simple as that.
We will come back. Welcome back to the program. We'll have more on all these other issues. Let's grab some phone calls, though. It's been a while. Todd is in New York. Todd, good afternoon.
Hi, how you doing, Paul?
We are doing great.
I'd like to say hello to Miss Laura.
Hello there.
Yes, I'm a first-time caller. I tried yesterday, but I was on the phone line for about 65 minutes, had to go to midweek church service and leave.
Well,
I'm glad you tried again.
You did the right thing, by the way.
Yes, and I totally forgot you guys are on the SEC network, which I get through, and I don't want to mention it because it might be advertising for the...
Oh, go ahead.
The DirecTV.
Oh, we like DirecTV.
We like them.
Yes. Yeah.
Hey, if you get SEC Network, we like whoever gives it to you.
DirecTV was one of the most important entities to come on board on the SEC Network.
Yeah, and I mean, it's really nice to have all the stuff. I'm a huge college football fan, so I'm jumping back and forth. I've got 2 recorders. My wife goes, oh, boy, it's Saturday, People will come over and say, no, he's engaged in football. I actually used to officiate high school football, work playoffs work playoffs, and actually it was Rich Stadium then, which is where the Bills play. But a couple of things I wanted to comment on, and then I'll get to the main thing. First of all, you were talking about brisket, and right now I actually have, and up here where we live in southwestern New York, we got about a foot of snow, so I have a crock pot with about a 3-pound pork loin with a nice apple seasoning going for it.
Oh, my goodness.
That sounds delicious. Sounds like that smells really good, too.
Very, very much. And the other thing is, couple quick stories. When I was a young boy growing up, there was a gentleman that was a freshman in college here, St. Bonaventure University, when I was a freshman in high school. got to know each other pretty well. He'd come down. I live in basically an integrated neighborhood. He'd come down and he'd visit people down below us. And the family across the street from us, his dad put a basket up. And we had guys in the neighborhood, like 6'1", 6'2". They could dunk, but they couldn't dunk down by the basket because it tapered down to a drain. Now, not like a regular drain, but one of those straight drains with the little notches in them, right? So they catch it at the end before it goes into the garage. Well, he'd come down, he'd play with us. He's the only one that could dunk it. He didn't really have to jump too high, and that gentleman's name was Bob Lanier.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. In fact, his coach from Bonnes back in the day, who played for Bonnes, Bob Sassola, and he lived about 3 houses
Didn't St. Bonaventure make the Final Four one year?
Yes, they did, and that's the year Lanier got hurt on the tartan surface. Of all things, he gets hurt on a tartan surface, and a few years later, Bonnes puts it in.
Right.
Tartan surface, which was the worst thing to dribble a ball on. You had no bounce.
Yeah, no, I've been on those. Where I went to school, they had one.
Yeah, even guys with hops would complain, we can't even jump on this stuff. But the other story is I was 13 years old, had a gym teacher, John O'Malley, and he says to us guys in junior high, he says, listen, he says, I'm a graduate of Notre Dame. He says, I'm going to have one of my friends come down. He goes, if you want to come down to Franchot Park, I'll be down there about 9 in the morning. Well, I woke up that Saturday morning, and a lot of the guys thought he was joking, and that it's only like 5 blocks from my house, so I walked down. Played catch with this guy for about hour and a half. About a dozen of us showed up, and this gentleman turned out to be, of course, his former roommate, and at the time he played for another franchise, but he turned out to be a starting Super Bowl quarterback, and his name was Darryl LaMonica.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, small town with big things. Pictures of my kids with Mickey Mantle when he came to visit. But
one of my heroes.
Yeah, one of my heroes, yes, very much so. But what I wanted to talk to you about is one of your favorite subjects. Oklahoma boy. His dad actually named him Mickey after Mickey Cochran, which was, of course, the catcher for the Yankees.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and that's how he got the name Mickey.
No, I grew up on the Yankees. My dad was a Yankees fan. So
Mel Barber and the whole shebang. Yeah. But anyway,
Barber, Mel Allen.
Yeah. So, anyways, my topic is going to be Brian Kelly, which is one of your favorite ones. I have been a Notre Dame. Yeah.
Let's go, Todd. This is good.
I have been a Notre Dame fan since 1964 at 12 years old, and that was Hewitt to Snow, right?
Later on, Hewitt won the Heisman.
Oh, yes. And, here's a man, and when you say that, you think about Ara Parseghian, because the thing is, here's a man who comes in as a coach, immediately starts changing people around, and you have a guy who basically had thrown, maybe 1 or 2 passes, and he picks him and says, you're going to be the starter, and the guy wins the Heisman. He just had that knack of knowing who could do what. And I think Nick Saban has a lot of that, too, in him. I really do, that he just knows. Yes, he gets top talent, but he knows where guys can perform well. But anyways, getting back to Brian, for the life of me, why does he want to stick? And I give all the credit to Brandon Winbush. I mean, he's a great kid, a great demeanor, a lot of talent, to the point where Kirk Herbstreit said during a game this year, I've seen him make all these throws. But if you go, and I don't know if you guys can access it real quick, but there's a website called irish.nbcsports.com.
Yeah.
And as you go through that, Doug Farmer writes articles, and I go, afterwards, and I check out the next day, or maybe even that evening if they had a day game, his articles. And if you go to the Stanford game, there's 2 pictures of Brandon Winbush. And in one of the pictures, he actually is stepping towards the receiver. Now, they've got him isolated, but he's holding the ball like a right-handed Sandy Koufax pitcher. In other words, his elbow is out away from his body. His upper arm is perpendicular to his body. He's holding the ball with his hand open to the line, and the points of the ball are parallel with the line of scrimmage. The next picture you see of him, he's actually standing with both feet together, facing the line, ball's in the same position in the arm. I showed this to a couple of football coaches, and I mean, being an official, too, you notice things. Every time they're wondering, why does the ball tail, why does it pull? It acts just like a slider, as a right-handed pitcher would throw a slider to the left, in baseball? Well, it's because of the way he's holding the ball. He has to come across, he pushes it, then comes across his body and snaps his wrist. Well, lo and behold, what do you think the ball is going to do? And like I say, you got a guy like Jake Fromm who improved greatly since we played them. And the thing is you want a quarterback, if you're going to build a power running game like Brian Kelly said, it's not dependent on how well your quarterback can run. It's dependent on how well your quarterback with passing can keep the defense honest. And down the stretch, Wimbush just was like a deer in the headlights. And it's like, if he's great in practice, but he's not great in the game, how do you correct it? Well, one of the big problems is if you look at those pictures, it's mechanics. It's not more repetitions. It's more perfect repetitions. Now, I'm hoping that he improves by the time we play LSU. But, to me, if you've got a backup quarterback that can pass, then open up the competition again. That's what it's supposed to be all about in college anyways. It's competition against each other. I mean, you're bringing in these kids, these recruits. I mean, they're starters where they came
Thanks so
from.
much for the call.